John and Ken Show. John Cobell and Ken Chiampo, KFI, AM 640 more, stimulating talk radio. The number of rational people in public service you could probably count on one hand. And one of them, though, is a judge named Michael Kenney out of Sacramento, and he has taken the big hammer, and he has temporarily squashed the prospects for high-speed rail in California. He issued an order saying that the High-Speed Rail Authority cannot borrow $8 billion out of the $10 billion that voters gave them permission to use for the high-speed rail project. It's $10 billion in bonds. Now, 8 out of the $10 billion off limits. And he's insisting that the California High-Speed Rail Authority redo its entire financial plan, which could take years. And the main reason is the proposition required funding, enough funding that the high-speed rail system would be sustainable and never require any subsidies from taxpayers. And he said right now there is no funding for this outside of the borrowed money, and there is no plan that shows high-speed rail would be sustainable.
So is this a setback, or is this what the high-speed rail people are calling it, or is this really the beginning of the end of the Boondoggle, this judge's decisions? Let's talk to an attorney for Central Valley residents who had sued to halt the Boondoggle. His name is Michael Brady.
Michael, welcome to the John and Ken Show.
Well, thank you. Delighted to be on your show. I've been on it before, and you guys probably do the best job of radio coverage in the whole state on this project.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. So the proposition required that there be funding for this project to prove that you could build it and then sustain it without any taxpayer subsidies.
That's exactly right. This proposition, unlike most public works measures, erected all sorts of important safeguards and protections for the voters and to protect the state from financial risk. Probably the most important was it said that you couldn't commence the project until you had all the money in place or reasonably committed enough money to finish what you selected as the initial segment and to finish it as a high-speed rail section. And how much is that? It's $31 billion as of 2 years ago, probably more now. And how much do they have? $6 billion, or about 20%. So the judge said, you don't have enough, and you can't start this thing until you prove to me that you've got commitments, reasonable commitments from the feds or the state or local or private investors to come up to that huge amount. So I read that as meaning they have to come up with $25 billion in new money. And I don't know where they're going to get it because, as I've talked before with you guys, the federal government cut them off totally from any new money for high-speed rail more than a year ago. I don't think the state has $25 billion in loose change lying around. And no local governments have ever volunteered anything, and no private investor has ever taken any interest in the project. So that seems to me to be a hurdle that will be extremely difficult for them to surmount, and yet the judge has said it's a mandatory hurdle, and they can't get access to any Prop 1A funds until they meet that.
Now, are they appealing his decision to a higher court?
Well, the decision was just rendered this morning. Frankly, I don't think that they can appeal it right now because there's still a part of the case that's going on. We allege 6 more violations besides the 2 that he found in August. And we're going to trial on those 6 other violations in the spring of this year.
Like the one that requires high-speed rail to actually be high speed?
Yes, electric and high speed and no subsidies, and that they got to get the passengers from L.A. to San Francisco in 2 hours and 40 minutes.
This proposition was actually written pretty well, wasn't it?
Well, that's a very good point. It was written very well, and in the last 2 weeks they put in all sorts of precautions and safeguards and requirements that you just never see, as I said, in a public works project. And they're very clearly written. The judge found them unambiguous, and that they were put in there to protect the state from financial risk and to protect the voters. And that the Attorney General kept arguing in the many hearings that we've had. She said, well, the most important thing is the legislature appropriated the money, and that's the most important. And the language of the proposition doesn't make that much difference. But the judge said, "Oh no, this was a proposition passed by the voters, and a measure that's an initiative actually." And this will be.
You're talking about Kamala Harris, the Attorney General?
Yes.
Her opinion was that the language of the proposition didn't matter. It mattered what the legislature decided to do.
That's correct, and the judge rejected that flat out. He said,
God.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Now that you said they have $6 billion to spend, now that's the federal money that was approved a while back, and I guess it's about $2 billion of the bond money.
3.2 Fed, 2.8 state. That state is bond money. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
That's all they have.
So the other $8 billion that the voters authorized to borrow can't be borrowed.
Actually, there's only about $8.5 billion left in Proposition 1A. They've spent the rest of it on things that they can spend without oversight. But whatever's left in there, they can't get any of that out.
So what are they going to do? Are they going to try to spend the few billion that they do have? And if they do spend it, on what?
Well, let me correct you. They can't spend, when you say the $2 billion they do have, they can't spend any Proposition 1A money. As of this morning.
Oh, even the stuff even the money they already borrowed, if they haven't spent it, they can't spend it.
That's right. They can't spend it, no.
What about, can they spend the federal money? Isn't that what they were going to do, spend the federal grant money?
Yes, they say that they're going to spend the federal money first, and it'll be a while, according to them, before they start spending the Proposition 1A money. But let me tell you and your listeners this. The federal money requires matching funds. The federal government didn't walk into this thing blind. They said, yeah, we'll put up 50%, you put up 50%. The judge has now said, in essence, you can't put up matching funds. Matching funds is spending, and I said you can't spend until you satisfy these environmental requirements and these other financing requirements. So I see the ruling as meaning no matching funds can be put up by the state or by the authority to match the federal funds, and that should cause the federal government to think seriously about withdrawing from this project totally and not allowing any more of their money to be spent.
So the federal money is on ice, too, even the money that's been appropriated already.
It should be. The judge did not issue any ruling against the use of federal funds. He said that really wasn't in his jurisdiction. But if federal funds require matching state funds and matching state funds can't be put up, a reasonable manager of money would say, hey, our money's at risk. We're not going to allow our money to be spent under these circumstances.
Are these high-speed rail knuckleheads, are they stuck in a box now? I don't see how they get out of this.
I think they are. That's a good description. At a standstill, I don't see how they can get out of it either.
The judge also made a decision on environmental clearances. Can you explain that?
Yeah, that was in August. That was the second important part of his decision. They can't spend any Prop 1A money until they satisfy the environmental issue. What they were saying is all we have to do is complete the environmental clearances for this little 28-mile section where we're going to start. The judge said, hold on here. That's not true. You've got to do the environmental clearances for the entire 300 miles that you selected. So they have 262 miles left to go. And you know how complicated environmental clearances and the completion of them are. That could take years, but they've got to do that before they touch $1 of Proposition 1A funds.
Yeah, you're quoted as saying it took them 5 years to do the 28 miles of environmental clearances. How long will it be for the rest of the 300?
A long time.
Wow. All right. Well, this sounds like good news, Michael. We hope it holds.
It's a real Thanksgiving present for our side and our good supporters in the Central Valley and the Peninsula. We're very happy with the ruling.
How long before Jerry Brown enters into this somehow?
Is there anything he can do?
I don't think so. Now, the last time that the ruling came out in August, he said we're going ahead, and the the authority just said the ruling doesn't apply to us. Well, I'd like for them to articulate as to how this ruling doesn't apply. They're directed not to spend any money. That sounds applicable to me.
All right, we'll see what they do. Thanks for talking to us, Michael Brady.
You're very welcome.
And great work.
For your excellent coverage.
Dan, thanks for your great work.
Yeah, you probably saved the state $100 billion here.
We hope. you just know these slippery people at the California High-Speed Rail Authority, in the legislature, Kamala Harris, you mentioned the Attorney General, Jerry Brown, the governor, they all want this. What trick are they going to pull?
But they don't have the money. They're going to have to rob a
Can they
lot
be
of
held in
banks.
contempt if they take the money?
Well, no, yeah, they legally can't. See, they never borrowed most of the money.
Yeah.
So, you have to sell the bonds. You have to find investors who are willing to lend you the money, and they're not allowed to ask now. So, to me, it seems like they hit the big wall. This thing is in extremely critical condition, if not dead.
I hate to jump around and cheer, though, too soon. Politicians, man, they're crafty.
I know, but they got to find the money.
Because what does it say here? They've already spent hundreds of millions on this project.
Sure, well, they're enriching themselves. This has been a good gig for all of them and all their connected buddies. So they'll get a few years enriching themselves.
And now they'll squawk about, the jobs.
Nobody really cares about high-speed rail as a concept. They just care about having a big pool of money that they can
share with their friends.
Yeah, this is about their own jobs here. All right. We'll be on top of this, but that's the best news you could possibly imagine. And there's more rulings that are probably, if the judge is reading this proposition to the letter of the law the way he has so far, then I bet you the rest of the rulings are going to go against the High-Speed Rail Authority too, because it isn't high-speed rail. They can't do it in 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Well, John has already decided guilty for Spaccio. I don't know what we're waiting for.